Ladies and gents, welcome back. The worst thing for the environment would be to use all your resources in the here and now, and that's what debt is. But let's not bury the lead. Justin Trudeau announcing his new emissions reduction plan to bring emissions down by 2030. Clean air, strong economy. I don't know about the second part. It's going for the clean air, right? He announced this plan yesterday, and here is his new action plan.
There's one thing to know about Canadians, is that when we work together, we can accomplish incredible things. Climate change is the biggest challenge facing humanity today, and Canadians have what it takes to meet the moment. What we do next is critical. The Emissions Reduction Plan is Canada's roadmap to meet its achievable greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. The Government of Canada is harnessing the ingenuity and the will of Canadians all across the country, not just to fight climate change, but to create sustainable jobs and build a strong economy for the future. Sector by sector, Canada's plan sets out the actions needed to cut pollution. Electric vehicles, renewable power, clean technologies, new businesses, and good, long-lasting jobs to meet the global demand for sustainable goods and services. Building a clean environment and a bright future for our kids and grandkids. Thousands of Canadians helped shape this plan. People of all ages, Indigenous peoples, businesses, communities, and all levels of government. This is your plan, and this is the Government of Canada's commitment to you. To fight climate change, to create good jobs, and to build a strong, vibrant future for everyone.
Sounds fantastic, doesn't it? Now, what is the Liberal government's track record on fulfilling plans? Well, here's an affordable housing plan. Well, how have they done with that one? Anyway, I digress on that. But here we go. Here's the new plan. The 2030 emissions reduction plan includes $9.1 billion in new investments to cut pollution and grow the economy, including, yes, lots of spending, lots and lots of spending, making it easier for Canadians to switch to electric vehicles. So more incentives. I'll tell you first and foremost, the British Columbia government had incentives. I enrolled in one of those programs, scrapped a car, and was denied a rebate based on a technicality, and that was that. So make sure you read the fine print. They're very happy on making sure you hold up your end of the bargain on these things. Greening Canada's homes and buildings by investing around $1 billion. Will develop a national net zero by 2050 building plan. Essentially, this one is we're going to build a $1 billion bureaucracy to regulate houses. Again, like more red tape, more regulation over building houses. That's what that is. So if you were planning to build a house and you were like, oh no, it's going to be expensive to get permits for this and cut through the regulation, they're just making it more expensive. Helping industries to adopt clean technology and transition to net zero emissions. We're delivering historic investments to enable industries to be clean and competitive and creating greater incentives to clean technologies and fuels such as carbon capture, utilization, and storage. Now, interesting story, back in the Obama years in the United States, they had a similar plan and they invested, see here, it's $80 billion into clean technology program, Solyndra. And Solyndra was a company that made solar panels, and economists all said this is going to fail. It's not going to work. You're propping up a business that's already failing. So yeah, U.S. taxpayers paid $80 billion to prolong a business for 6 months. That's what happened. And yeah, that business isn't around anymore. Sorry, but they filtered that money through Solyndra, and a lot of people made off like bandits. Making Canada's grid even cleaner will develop a regulated clean electricity standard, making additional investments, about $850 million in clean energy projects like solar power, like Cylindra, and work with provinces and territories, stakeholders, Indigenous partners, and move Canada's electricity grid to net zero emissions by 2035, while including to ensure that Canadians and businesses have access to reliable, affordable power. Now, in the grand scheme of thing, $850 million into infrastructure is actually not that much. It's not that big of a deal if you're talking about actually making like hydroelectric dams or something like that. $850 million might buy you one. But we keep hearing this net zero, and it looks like it's net with a -0, and they don't define the term anywhere in here. So I had to look this up. What does net zero mean? And I found the word net zero, and it kept bringing me to carbon neutrality, and this is a term that's thrown around quite a bit. Net zero is a term that is associated with this language here. And what I found here is it often brings you to this term, carbon offsetting. And this was a term that, we all became familiar with, well, maybe some of us did a while ago. And even environmentalists, like hardcore environmentalists like Greenpeace, wrote articles about this. Carbon offsets are a scam. Carbon offsetting is truly a scammer's dream scheme. It's a bookkeeping trick intended to obscure climate-wrecking emissions. It's tree planting, window dressing aimed at distracting from ecosystem destruction. So the idea of going net zero doesn't mean that you're not polluting anymore. Now, for the average person who switches to like an electric car, you're not really zero emissions at that point, because obviously you're going to have to produce that electricity somehow. So net zero would mean you also have to buy offsetting. So carbon offsetting to get to net zero would also get you into this kind of scheme. And by offsetting, essentially what it is you're paying indulgences to a system that purports to be removing CO2 from the atmosphere. You have to just trust that that's what they're doing. See, Greenpeace writing a hit piece about particularly this in this instance, saying greed drives it. Big oil corporate polluters want to keep putting profits over people and the planet. It feigns compassion. The same climate villains want to publicly appear to be taking climate action to help their image. It's total greenwashing, they say. Now, with all due respect, this is Greenpeace. These are the same people that are known for putting spikes in trees to injure loggers as they plunge a chainsaw into the trees. So these are the same people writing this article. So take that with a grain of salt. But the plan as it is this new environmental plan. Here's what Conservative Party reacts to the government's new climate change plan. This is yesterday.
Good afternoon. Just wanted to give my thoughts and comments on the the 2030 emissions reductions plan. So one of the things we have to look at is what the effect of this is going to have on the Canadian economy. This is a very broad plan going across all sectors of the Canadian economy. What we learned actually last week in a report that was released by the Parliamentary Budget Officer is that the Liberal government didn't calculate the cost of the carbon tax as it works its way through the economy. And when you do that, you end up with an actual loss to 6 in 10 Canadians. They're financially worse off. And the government by 2030 ends up with $5 billion in less revenue that they have not taken into account. So when we look at a plan like this, I am highly skeptical that they've done the complicated analysis to see what the effect of this is going to have on the Canadian economy and, of course, on Canadian taxpayers. Some of the things that they have put in here, for example, a 30% reduction in fertilizer, MNP did a report on this and said from now until 2030, this will cost Canadian farmers $48 billion and then $10 billion a year after that. And that doesn't even take into account what that will do to the cost of food right now as we're living through an affordability crisis. So I am deeply concerned about what the effect that this plan is going to have on the Canadian economy and, of course, on Canadians.
This, as we've seen national debts soaring in Canada. Here we have Goldstein, Toronto Sun, opinion piece saying Trudeau's runaway spending hiked Canada's debt $160 billion before the pandemic even hit us. We're not even sure yet what the effects of the pandemic have on us, let alone this new, I mean, what can you call it but a spending bill, this ecological plan. They have the government, Trudeau government broke the debt clock. They actually had to make a new van. If you're unfamiliar, they have a van that goes around. It's not like Times Square in New York with the U.S. debt clock. This is a van that goes around. They had to buy a new van because there wasn't enough numbers on it to keep that going. So without making this video go too long, the main message behind this is spending your resources in the here and now can never be a good plan for ecological mitigation. If you want to conserve the environment, I think fiscal conservatism usually is the route to go for that. So I'll leave that with you guys. If you have any comments, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and keep on trucking.